Welcome to another episode of The King's Couch. I'm your host, Sulo King, and today I have a very special guest and a very special setting. The one and only Tim Pyles, and he's currently sitting in my car with his buddy Curtis in the back seat, and we're on our way to Disneyland. And we're just leaving my dad's house. I had to make a quick little pit stop and drop off his guitar amp, and now we're getting on the road and leaving Carlsbad, where you know the motto in Carlsbad, right, Tim?
No, I do not.
Life's rad in Carlsbad.
I don't know who came up with that. Your dad?
Probably some surfer, I don't know. Actually, back in the Brick by Brick days, owner Max Paul, his friend Joey, who used to be in a band with, used to run a shop called Life's Rad up here. I don't know if he does anymore.
Okay. And now you know.
And now you know. And now everyone listening to this will know.
Exactly.
So Tim and I, we like to frequent Disneyland every once in a while.
Thank you, Fallon.
Yes, shout out to Fallon for accommodating us and her lovely hospitality. Tim likes to frequent Disneyland more than anyone I've probably ever met.
Only in the last few years. I mean, I got that pass before COVID, and I got one after, but I haven't renewed it. The last visits over the last few months since it expired has been courtesy of you and Fallon.
Right.
But yeah, I figured if I'm going to do it, you might as well really do it. So,
Well, how much does an annual pass cost these days?
now they're $1,600 at the highest level, which includes, parking. I mean, gosh, if you're going once a week, I added it all up. I mean, the parking alone almost paid for the pass, you know what I mean? So it just depends on your usage. I mean, I'm sure Curtis, my friend who's behind me, laughed at how much I did go. I mean, I went by myself. I didn't care. Like,
I'm sure everybody got it.
I can be distracted, and I don't know how. It's funny. If you're on any of the Facebook groups for, say, the Magic Key holders, and it's a group of people that have those passes, and you constantly see people having issues with going solo. Like, hell, I'm gonna go. I'm going to Batu.
When you say issues, what do you mean by that exactly?
They have anxiety issues with going by a solo.
Oh, gotcha. I see what you mean. Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoy it, just being able to bounce around and do what I want to do. I feel bad for the dads that I see that are on their last straw, and you're forced to follow. I mean, it's part of the experience, of course, but yeah, it's fun to be an adult kid at Disneyland. Go do what you want to do.
Sure is.
I just don't run to the rides like I probably did when I was a kid, but it's the same thing when I was a kid. Like, I used to hate to have to stay with my parents. Like, let me go.
Right.
Anyway, I'm going to enjoy today, but it's not like I've had withdrawal issues, considering I haven't been able to go once a week.
Yeah, and some weeks you go multiple times in a week, which I've never...
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of just Mondays and Tuesdays,
Right. Yeah, well, you really used those annual passes.
Yeah, I got to experience it
Full potential.
to a whole nother level and do things maybe I wouldn't normally have done on just a day. If you're back, want to go once a year, you might not go do Mr. Lincoln's experience, but all of that stuff is fun to experience. It all depends on who you are, what you are. I mean,
That's true. That's a good point.
not everybody loves that whole Disney experience, but
Not everyone loves Disneyland either.
but I would say, if you're going to commit to some amusement park, if you compared the prices between, SeaWorld, Knott's Berry Farm, even, Universal, Magic Mountain, Disney passes are like 3 times as much.
Right.
It's a considerable jump from every other amusement park to what they offer. But they know they have you by the balls.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, it's fun. I mean, for me, ultimately, it was all about the Star Wars Batu experience, and I knew that if I couldn't just go to that once, I'd want to go
More than once, multiple times.
But I don't necessarily have the expendable cash to be, I mean, it's one thing to have the pass, but then, just going to the park itself, you're dropping money too. So it's a commitment.
My best advice to everyone listening to this is make friends with people that work there, like I have over the years. And they're all people I've met through the music industry.
That's it, yeah. You said you have multiple friends, but we've been with Fallon.
Because, Fallon's one of my favorite people.
She's awesome.
In life, period. Like, she's one of my best friends. I don't get to see her all the time, and I've known her for years, and always supported everything I've done, and just she's a great person, and I'm glad that you have got to know her the last couple of years that we've been going on.
Yeah.
So, for those of you that are, don't really know who Tim Pyles is or what he does.
What?
I mean, shame on you if you don't.
I'm kidding.
He's a radio DJ, VJ. I've dubbed him, I'm sure others have in San Diego, as like a local superhero. But I call him the San Diego Mayor of Music. And he's like San Diego's version of Rodney Bingenheimer, in my opinion. So Tim, why don't you tell us a little bit about your career, and a little later we'll get into what your early roots were and what got you into wanting to be a radio DJ.
Well, right now I'm booking bands for the Casbah and the Wonderbus. Most people know about the Casbah, wonderful venue in San Diego, celebrating
36 years?
Over 30 years in San Diego. But Tim Mays, of course, has been doing things much longer than that. I figure his first show was in the early 80s. But, of course, the Casbah originates in 1989. Great to be able to be a part of that experience. And then the Wonder Bus is a whole nother thing, English double-decker bus where bands perform on top. It's like a rolling billboard, basically, promoting Templeton Rye whiskey and the Screwball peanut butter whiskeys and some other brands, but it's really cool. They'll drive around downtown in the Gaslamp Quarter before a Padres game, for example. So I've been doing that. Up in Laguna Beach, there's a radio station I've been actually broadcasting from. I just produce the shows at home and send it to them, and those air Thursday nights. 2 shows. One's just new music, whatever new releases, and then the other one is Stomping Grounds, kind of covering Southern California music, Orange County to just across the border, TJ, which is similar to Loudspeaker, but I now incorporate some bands from Orange County into the mix because the station's a small non-com. It's a FM signal in Laguna Beach, 104.7 FM, but you can stream it just like you can stream anything else. And it's a great alternative station. People do some different shows, but it's kind of got good consistent programming, and it's it's definitely a lot more eclectic than a commercial alternative radio station, and which aren't really alternative because they're corporate in that sense, but they try. And so that's been fun. I was actually they just had a takeover recently where they bring people in and ask for donations, because I mean that's how these stations operate. They don't really run advertising, they're not promoting anything other than community-based stuff. But the cool thing about this station, which makes it kind of unique, is that it's there because Laguna Beach is so isolated with limited ways in and out. So when there's ever a natural disaster, and I guess that could be anything from a tsunami to earthquake, but mostly fires. So basically that's, if you live in Laguna Beach and there's a fire, and say everything goes down, that's your resource to find out how to escape from Laguna Beach. And they discovered that years ago that was a necessity. There's something like that up in the Pala area. So basically it's a small FM. It operates just as a radio station, but if something were to happen, its main service is to be able to be a way to, help people survive a a massive fire, massive blaze.
Yeah, makes sense.
So that's kind of an interesting thing, and fun little station. It's alternative, maybe a little adult alternative leaning.
And how did you get that opportunity? How did that come about?
I was always hustling when I was at 91X as a part-timer. I was never, a full-time employee under contract, so I was always trying to do other things, whether maybe hosting a night at the Moreau or, San Diego, the TV show, or any of these things that I've done. But Mookie, who, when I was originally at 91X, he was the traffic guy. He'd be the dude between 3 and 6 that would report on the traffic. And so when I got my DUI and was no longer there at 91X, the first time I got let go, which was easier to understand because I got a DUI in a company car. But that opportunity opened the door for Mookie, who he did middays at 91X for a while. He's currently at Cal State Northridge's radio station. I think it's KCSN maybe, which is also kind of a non-com type station. They take donations. They have a predominant signal in the Southern California area with a couple different colleges participating in the programming. So Mookie, though, before that was at the station running KXFM. So I started the FTP new music. Gosh, I've been doing that over there for probably 5 years maybe or longer. God, I don't know. So I would produce and send that to them. And then I started Stomping Grounds, which is basically, where are your stomping grounds? Where do you hang out? That's local music, right? You go see the local band at the local bar. So Stomping Grounds is the show I started since 91X decided I wasn't part of their team anymore. And I'm not stopping, but I'm not moving, Unfortunately, if you're a professional contracted employee, maybe like Zach is somebody that is at 91X. Currently, he does afternoons, and he was a guy that was brought in, and he has a contract. But one day they will decide maybe not to renew that contract. But he's more of a lifer, and that's what you have to do if you want to keep working at a certain level. You got to move around into the different markets. Let's see what else. Podcast is kind of happening. I produced a bunch of episodes of that. It's kind of transitioning from a place that was Olas Media to U Media, but that doesn't really matter in the sense if you're looking for the Local Pile podcast, you would just search the Local Pile wherever you go get your podcast.
Now, is the podcast something that you created the idea for? Did somebody approach you with that idea?
Chris Cantori a little bit. I mean, basically it's just a long form version of Loudspeaker or whatever. I mean, a local show where I'm just interviewing the bands and more in depth.
But you're more centered around one single dish?
One artist, yeah, one artist or one band.
Cool. And how can people tune into that?
Just search the Local Pile wherever you consume podcasts.
Okay. And are you doing anything like the VJ front, any new music shows in the works?
No comment.
No comment. Okay. All right. Fair enough. In my opinion, Tim, we've known each other since we both started our careers.
Sure.
And I've watched you rise up throughout that time. And I think that you are such an amazing voice for San Diego music and just music in general. Between you and Bart Mendoza, you're the two. Bart's more like the music historian, in my opinion, and you're the face of music, in that sense. And I absolutely love it, man. I'll always support you. I appreciate everything that you've done, not just for me, but for everyone in San Diego. For years, you've never stopped. You've never lost that drive or that passion. I've seen many radio DJs come and go in their, prominence in their career, but with you, you live for this. You genuinely love doing this, and people see that and respond to that.
It starts with my mother taking me to see Kiss in the mid-'70s as a young very young kid, 11 years old, I think, too. Seeing the Clash when I was 16, finally getting to see an artist that I loved and admired, but without my parents. And then, yeah.
That's rad.
I do have a vivid memory of probably throwing a temper tantrum when I was 16, 17. Sparks was playing in San Diego up at UCSD, and they probably had that Ants in My Pants song that was all over 91X or something like that, and I ended up having to stay home, forced to stay home and take care of my sister. Oh man, I still think it drives me today, like that whole FOMO, missing a show I want to see, and just that passion of the performance and that experience, I
hear you, man. Yep, and Tim is still out in the mix multiple times a week, sometimes still to this day out there.
I love being impressed by. I have a bunch of shows coming up at the Casbah with bands I've never seen before in my life.
That's
and
awesome.
It's, I don't know, not everybody does that. You might vet somebody, or I don't even look at how many friends or likes, or if I'm interested enough, like, okay. I mean, I get it. It's truly a test these days, booking a Monday or a Tuesday night at the Casbah with local bands is really tough,
I think it's just tough anywhere.
Right.
The only time I've really seen consistent Monday night work anywhere in any market is Metal School, which is now Steel Panther, when they had a residency up in Hollywood.
Well, there's a lot of places now that have there's a lot of stuff to do in San Diego that attracts maybe the people that would go see local bands, and within your area, the breweries, and I mean, just driving through North Park and down Adams Ave. There's just a lot of places and things, you're not, Casbah's so isolated these days, there's no foot traffic. You're either going or you're not going to the Casbah.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, I've had plenty of Monday nights with 20 people in there that.
Well, Casbah is more of a destination venue.
Right. But it's always a test, I mean, we don't require bands to sell tickets. There's no demand on the band. I mean, you're expected to promote the show, But ultimately, I get it. Like, I don't hold a band accountable if they can't bring people out. I mean.
And that's awesome, because a lot of, I wouldn't even call you a promoter necessarily,
right.
But promoters in general have like that bad stigma to them, bad rep, that they're just greedy slime balls that want to make money. In fact, when I met Dave Mustaine, when I was about to enter becoming a promoter, working in the music scene, he questioned me. He's like, we had a mutual friend that was doing cinematography work for him. That's how I got the intro. And he's like, well, why do you want to be a promoter? Every promoter I've ever met has been a snake and a shark, and I hear you're a musician. Why don't you just stick to just doing that? And I looked at him and I said, because I want to make a difference. Because what better than having a musician on, our side? I want to make a difference. I want to give promoters a better name and show them that we actually care about what we do. And then, a couple years later, or whatever it was, I meet you, Tim. And that was proof in the pudding right there. I finally met someone else that got my mindset and passion and drive for this.
Nice.
Just a little older and a different profession of what you're doing, but I get it. And look at us, 20 years later, here we are. And we're still hanging out, talking about music.
Going to Disneyland.
And supporting the scene in that sense. In fact, I just had Tim as my official master of ceremonies for the annual toy drive that the band I sing in, Authentic Sellout, hosts every year. This was the first year of us doing an event for it, and I really appreciate you coming down and supporting that.
I went to OB in the morning.
Yep.
Hung out with all the dirty hippies.
It was a matinee show. It was the same day as the OB Christmas parade. It was a good time. Then you cut out for a little while to go join the
I had the best time. I jumped on the Wonder Bus with Martin and the big nativity scene, and that was just a fun experience, to cruise down Newport on the bus as they're just rocking out, and what a great bunch of guys. Check out Chicken Heads. Always go to Chicken Heads when you're in OB. Some of the best fried chicken you will ever experience. Shout out to Martin and Bruno. And go to Hodad's too. We love Shane.
Yep, love Martin. I met him when he first moved to San Diego. He was in a band called the Wastrels.
Yep. Oh man, I remember that.
I started off booking him and the other projects he was in, and then I watched him, kind of not do music as much anymore. Start a family.
Yeah.
And then he started getting like into the food business.
Yeah.
He had like a taco cart.
Yeah.
For a while.
But Chicken Heads is his place.
He just opened that up. The last couple years?
Yeah, I forget what's. It's like right next to Hodad's, that parking lot next to Hodad's, but it also has. It's like within the bar. I mean, they have a storefront, but there's also like a service window inside the bar that's right there.
So if you're walking down Newport, it's that old like taco shop that was attached to Sunshine Company.
Sunshine Company, yeah. So that's some good chicken.
Yeah, if you listen to this and you want some good chicken and you want some good atmosphere and scenery, go down to Ocean Beach on Newport, Chicken Heads, and tell Martin that Tim Pyles and Sulo
There you go.
sent you down there. So Tim, look, what I like to do with all my guests is I love to go back to the very beginning, your childhood, and understand and learn what your earliest roots were and what made you want to get into radio. So let's go.
Dr. Demento. Dr. Demento. Are you familiar with Dr. Demento?
I am only because of my father.
So I mean, radio was such a theater of the mind experience before television. You didn't have television, but didn't exist. But you think about that when radio and the show, that kind of experience. You would be listening to something. Well, and my love of radio, Dr. Demento was probably the first my discovery. I mean, before that, listening to the big stations in San Diego. I guess back then it would have been B100. Maybe that's the equivalent to Q106, kind of. It was a pop station. But when you're a kid, you don't know any better, right?
Right. Yeah. I remember growing up listening to Q106, for example.
Well, but I never listened to Q106. But B100, another story.
But I do remember B100.
Yeah. But that still, But I mean, you think about it. Pop music in the '70s is different than what pop music was in the '80s. It's all changed. But '70s pop music was what? Stuff that is classic today. But yeah, Dr. Demento was probably my first love of a radio show and that experience. But my love of music and being exposed to the new music stuff. I mean, back then there were some shows before 91X came. In 1983, there was Night Flight and a couple other late night things that started to expose you to Talking Heads or some of these artists. But I fell in love with that music, fell in love with kind of the radio show idea, and then 91X comes on, and all of a sudden there's a station that speaks to us and our generation. I grew up in La Jolla. There was technically a radio station on campus. We were just playing records for the students. But I DJ'd there, KLJ8JS. Yeah, La Jolla High. I did that for my senior year, maybe 11th, 12th grade. When I went to college, I went to a Lutheran university. Wasn't really that religious, but for whatever reason, that's where I went, up in Thousand Oaks. And they also had a radio station, kind of like KCR. It was cable access only. You couldn't tune it in. You had to buy a splitter for your cable box, plug it into your stereo, and then your stereo could tune in. People could do that in San Diego with KCR, which is a bummer because San Diego deserves to have a good college radio station that is on the actual radio. But anyway, I did that for a year at that college, and I did not go back after that year. Came back to San Diego, went to City College, got 2 associate's degrees, one in radio, TV, one in film and video. And then I didn't do anything with it. I worked in construction, I worked with law firms. And then eventually at 30, after running through that, I became an intern at 91X. Found a job posting randomly that was, they needed a runner to deliver mail between the buildings of the company I was interning for. So that was the beginnings of these mega companies owning all these radio stations, good or bad for the industry. It was good for me because they all of a sudden needed somebody on the payroll to deliver, pick up mail at all their different buildings. This is before they all moved in the same building.
What year was this?
97.
Okay.
And so then I had my foot in the door, and then I began to show up to Loudspeaker every Monday night, which was on at midnight back then. But I was there, and I eventually took it over. And then Muckley, who was the music director, and Hillary kind of threw the opportunity to host a new music show. So, I mean, that was my thing, and I still got to do that even though I was never a full-timer, to get to be on the air a little bit and to have 2 shows where you actually got to play the music that you had some interest in playing, which is not what DJs get to experience anymore, and haven't for years. There's a playlist, and they go in there, and they don't have anything to contribute to. You know, if they heard some great track that morning, they don't necessarily have the ability to just go ahead and play it. But yeah, I had the new music show and the local show, so I could play awesome new bands from all over the world, and then elevate these local artists that I would discover. And I was always trying to find them. Still trying to find them.
I was just about to say, you're still on that quest.
More so than people that have radio shows, I think.
I agree. I think that, in my opinion, like, you're one of the most unique, people that I've seen, that I've come across in the industry, period. Like, you've never lost that passion, never lost that love for not just music, but supporting others, and you give everyone a fair chance.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned earlier that you have I think a show or a series of shows with bands you've never even seen.
Yeah.
Or really heard.
I like to see effort. Yeah. I mean, I want to see effort from the artist and maybe somebody, however they might find me or whatever. It just depends. Play your cards right. And
right.
I mean, I'll like a band and can trust a band without even hearing their music based on the band name and the visual.
Right.
I don't even have to listen to the music. I can make up my mind. Because at some point I don't trust any recordings or anything. And it's like, I got to see them live. I have to. So my nights are showcase nights. It's an opportunity to prove your worth for other opportunities.
So if someone wants to send you their info,
DM me on Twitter or Instagram.
Okay.
The local Pyle.
Awesome.
The local Pyle.
And you can also look, in the info section on this interview for this episode, and he'll have all his information tagged there. So just follow those links. And Tim Pyles is an amazing driving force here in San Diego. I can't emphasize that enough. Love the guy to death. We've been friends for years. He met me when I was driving a golf cart in front of Kane's Bar and Grill. And I'll never forget it. He just had this charming, swagger to him that I could relate to and gravitate to. And I was like, I like this guy. And
I like you, Sulo.
We've been friends for so long, and we've never, stopped working together in some capacities. When I had my recording studio, you started doing the Pyles sessions.
Yeah.
And I loved doing
Shout out to George.
Shout out to George.
Who did most of our engineering.
And then, why don't you talk a little bit for a second about the Pyles sessions and how you conceived that whole concept for it.
That is inspired by a legendary British broadcaster by the name of John Peel that recorded all these sessions with legendary bands. I think there are thousands of them. I don't know exactly how many there are, but his son still does a show on BBC 6 where they go through and play stuff from the archives, which is really cool. But he's a British broadcaster. I think there's some part about those sessions, actually, the purpose being it was a way for them to record their own versions of the songs that were put out by the record company in a way to alleviate paying fees and royalties to the record label.
Right.
so they would have their own version of it, I guess. But anyway, the sessions are legendary. So I started doing those with local bands. Well, it actually starts in 91X originally, where I had access to a space. I was engineering live remotes, and I was hosting the new music show. So if some band was playing San Diego, I'd say, hey, do you think they'd come by the studio and we could record something? I did it kind of haphazardly and by the seat of my pants. Didn't always have the bells and whistles to offer the artists until eventually Alan Sanderson offered the opportunity to do it at his studio, who he's a professional engineer and recorded the Stones and Weezer. Yeah. And so then that elevated those sessions. That was a big ass pothole. And he elevated those sessions because he brought a whole professional experience to those. So with that happening, I also started to bring in bigger artists, if I could get them in. Look, because the local bands started the sessions with Alan, but also I knew I could do it like I'd been doing at 91X.
Yeah, like
I could bring some cool band in, which I think I did at Black Box even before it was Icon, but I did quite a few in your space.
Yeah, we did at least 6, something like that.
Yeah, so before you were there, I did one with a band that I love called The Horrors, British band. Amazing session. Also did one with a band back then called British Sea Power. Actually, I don't know if I have that one on video. But over the years, gosh, Idols was probably one of the more recent ones we were able to do.
How could I forget that session? That was the last one we did.
Joe Talbot, the lead singer, came out from the bathroom to inform me that the toilet was clogged and that he had attempted to clear it. And I'm like, okay, well.
And I'll give him respect for at least doing that.
And then I didn't want to tell you, so I went in and tried to no avail, and so I had to tell you.
And I'll give you respect for attempting that too. So what ended up happening is my now ex-girlfriend happened to be there with me, and I was like, we're gonna have to make a trip to Home Depot because the plunger's not working. And so we bought a snake, and the guy at Home Depot recommended that we buy a CO2 plunger just in case. So the snake didn't work, and she didn't trust me doing the CO2 plunger. She was afraid I was going to blow the toilet up. But how much worse could it really be?
I'm just worried about the spray back on the CO2 thing.
It comes with like a little protective cover.
A condom?
That you put over it, and I think we missed a certain area, and she decided to do it herself, and I'll never forget it. It kind of sprayed back on her.
Oh.
Poor girl. It got on her pants, not in her face, luckily, but I was sitting there like just horrified for a second. I was like, oh my God. And I saw the look on her face, and I thought she was going to kill me for a second. But she took it in stride, and, shout out to her, shout out to Angie for being such a trooper and always supporting the scene. And she always thought very fondly of you, Tim.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
But she's your ex-girlfriend, so move on.
Yes, but we're still friends,
But that was an amazing session, yes, and it's available online. Just search the Pyles sessions. Craig Ryan has edited and shot most of them. A lot of them you would find, but I've worked with other guys. Craig Ryan was just the guy that we worked together the last, 10 years. I don't know how long it's been. But, yeah, if you just search the Pyles sessions, you'll find sessions with TSOL, sessions with Invasion. Oh, gosh.
Features Dennis, the lead singer of The Refuse.
Yeah. There's quite a few.
Yeah. And because of those Pyles sessions, that's how I met Craig Ryan and Albert Lombard.
Yep.
And throughout
I think it's his birthday today.
Is it really?
No.
Oh.
He doesn't celebrate birthdays, remember?
Oh, that's right. But because of that connection of us working together, that's how I met Craig and Albert and started working with them on Authentic Sellout videos. And then Craig and I have been working on multiple projects outside of just Authentic Sellout throughout the years. And
Nice.
Can't thank you enough for making that connection for us. I love it.
Craig's a good dude. He loves music.
He sure does. And because of us, we've given Craig a fun opportunity to do some radical stuff
Radical.
in the music world. So shout out to Craig Ryan. But yeah, do you want to say anything before we pause the interview, and then we'll do a recap of our Disneyland trip on the way back for a little bit.
I went to the James Corden show the other day.
Let's talk about that for a second. How was that?
That was fun. I enjoy James Corden, so I thought I would go participate in seeing a taping of his show. I think he's only got like 45 left.
Oh, really?
He's retiring from there. Yeah.
Was there a reasoning behind that? He's fairly young, isn't he?
Yeah, he's been doing it like 8 years. I don't know. Nobody's Johnny Carson anymore. So I think that's a big thing. Nobody's got that staying power. But yeah, it's fun to go experience a taping. I've done that a few times. Probably the coolest was when me and Curtis, actually, who was here, went and saw Rocket from the Crypt perform.
Oh, nice.
On the Craig Kilborn late night version show at that time.
Right on. Oh, Craig Kilborn, I remember that. That was a long time ago.
And Angela Bassett, that queen from Black Panther. Oh, she's beautiful. She was the guest on that show.
Oh, nice. I've been on when George Lopez had his talk show. I went up twice for that. That was an interesting experience.
I was looking at that site where you get tickets for those types of experiences, and his new show is on that. Lopez versus Lopez.
Yeah, I heard about
with
that.
his daughter. It's a pretty funny show, actually. The other day I'm watching, he's drinking on it all the time, but the other day I'm watching it and he's in the garage with his homie, and they're like sitting there there's a bong, they're sitting with a tray, he's like rolling a blunt, and like, it's just weird to watch stuff sometimes now where it's just
so free and open.
It's just,
like
yeah. Not a big deal, yeah. There's a bong sitting there right now at 8:30 on it's just weird how the lines get blurred and moved.
Yeah, we're in an interesting era, I will say that, these days. And on that note, we're going to pause it because we are, I got to communicate with our lovely Disneyland hostess, Fallon, and let her know that we're running a tad bit late getting up there. But we'll be back in a little bit, and we'll have to tell you all about our fun adventures. Hopefully I don't bruise Tim's leg again, thinking his leg is a handrail in the dark on, what is it, Guardians of the Galaxy?
Yeah.
All right. On that note, we'll be back.
Pray for us.
Pray for us. All right, we're back. We're on our way back to San Diego. We pulled in a 12-hour day, right, Curtis?
Yeah.
About
pretty
a 12-hour day. And we've been talking for like the last 10-15 minutes about Disneyland and the proposed projects in Disney World. But let's talk a little about today, Tim.
About today?
Yeah.
Well, thank you again to Fallon, our lovely cast member benefactor from the park, who spent a good portion of her day with us. It's very nice.
Shout out to Fallon.
Yeah, definitely shout out to Fallon. It's really cool that she shares that with us. And yeah, it was fun, We did a lot. You got a holocron, a Jedi holocron, but you got the wrong kyber crystal, but it'll still work, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, the guy sold me on the idea of the dark side.
They want you to collect all of them. It's like trading cards. That's the whole gimmick with it. But yes, I almost have all of them, I think. And I have both holocrons and one lightsaber. And I do blame my friend Curtis, but that's another story. I'm equally to blame for it.
Well, it would be even funnier, me gifting it to my trainer Kane and him telling me that he already has one.
Maybe he's got the Sith holocron, not the Jedi.
Well, we'll see what happens tomorrow morning when I train with him.
But we did a lot, yeah. We did rides, we had some fun. We did Splash Mountain for the last time.
Yeah.
My friend Curtis wouldn't go. He didn't want to get wet, and we did stay pretty dry.
Yeah, we did. You missed out, Curtis. Yeah.
But like he said, it would have been, 1 out of 3 guys gets wet, and he would have been the 1 out of 3.
Right.
So I can't blame him.
You mentioned that he still has opportunity to go. He doesn't have
True.
a season pass. So.
Well, it's closing in a few days. Right,
Oh.
Curtis? When's it closing? A couple days. Seriously, a couple days.
I'd say the 23rd.
I think so. Well, it's definitely before the new ride, Mini Railway opens. But yeah, we couldn't go on Cars Land, Radiator Springs, or
That
we
was
couldn't
closed,
go
right?
on. What was the other one that was closed?
The water one that you guys were talking about. What's it called again? The Grizzly Rapids or something?
Oh, that was closed. Yeah, you don't know. I mean, that one you're gonna get soaked on.
Fallon was funny. She's all, well, it's cold today.
Yeah.
Cold time of year. Do you really want to get wet?
I typically would not go on Splash Mountain, period. But
It's
gotta
closing for good.
I want to hear Zippity Doodah one last time
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
for a great film, regardless of its racist overtones.
Yeah, well, we are in the cancel culture era, so, I mean,
True that.
yeah. It is
I'm
what
just
it
bummed we
is.
didn't go on Star Tours, but that's all right.
Oh, that is the one thing. I think the last time we came up here, we went on that 3 or 4 times in a row, and I looked at this guy, Curtis, and I'm like, you really want to go on it again? And we got the same adventure, I think, every single time except for maybe...
That's why you keep doing it.
Yeah.
It's like a crapshoot. You never know what you're gonna get.
He just wants to be the spy.
And I have been the spy, thankfully.
Yes.
I love the pod racing segment. Probably the pod racing's my favorite.
The Padres? What are you talking about?
You go pod racing in Star Tours
Oh, I didn't
in
know.
one of the 16 whatever different cutaways they have.
I think I've only had like maybe 3 or 4 of the different adventures. I don't.
I like that, and when you go in the Gungan, you go underwater
That's
into the Gungan village, and then those creatures attack you. And yeah, it's so sweet, bro.
So Tim is like a Disneyland aficionado, and I've learned that Curtis is a season pass holder, and this is our first time going to Disney, or at least with me, going to Disneyland with him, and we had a great time. Tim reminds me of like Clark Griswold from National Lampoon's Vacation. He's got an itinerary, and I just follow his lead every time I go. And I love that because it takes the guesswork out of what to do, and he's ahead of the curve, already on his app, so he's always like 1 or 2 steps ahead of me, and leads me around, and it's
With a leash. No.
we need a leash for you the way you charge at Disneyland. This guy's ready to stomp over little kids. You gotta watch out for Tim
Get out of my
Pyles.
way.
A man on a mission. But I love it. We always have a good time. We accomplish a lot, and we've been up now like I think 4 times,
Yeah.
something like that. And it's always an adventure hanging out with Tim Pyles, regardless if it's at Disneyland or whatever.
At a rock and roll club.
Yeah. So let's go back a little more and talk about just the San Diego music industry and where your thoughts are, like how passionate you are, and what kind of led you to where you're at right now, and looking forward and ahead, where you want to take your career. Like, what are you thinking? Like, where are you at right now? With everything. I know it's kind of an open
Irvine.
question, but
I'm at Irvine.
I don't mean literally right now.
Oh,
In
physically?
the car, physically. I'm
Yeah, I
talking
don't know,
about,
man.
Where's your mind at as far as what you're
Still at
doing?
Disneyland now.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not talking about a couple potential things, I guess, but I just want to keep helping San Diego music and musicians and venues and elevate, kind of what's going on here. Town has changed a lot just in the last 10 years. There's new happening districts, like years ago there was no North Park. That's obviously a big thing. I think that's going to start popping off in different places. I think,
Dude, North
Third
Park-
Avenue is going to get better. Hell,
Yeah.
Broadway and Lemon Grove might even turn into something. I think this might be down the line by a few years, but the transition of San Diego from the sleepy little town is changing.
starting to look like Disneyland.
Well, I don't know. It's getting more concentrated, consolidated. They're starting to build up. You see that in certain areas, especially University, El Cajon Boulevard. The concentration of people now going to be living in certain parts of the community, and I don't know. I think there are a lot of transplants moved here during COVID. A lot of people that you have to realize that other parts of the country that are awesome, like San Diego, that might have certain kind of tech industry around it or whatnot. You know, those places have been ruined in some ways. San Francisco, Vancouver, different parts of the country through, the gentrification and young people moving in, changing it up. I think, a lot of people can remote work. There's just more, there's a lot of untapped culture and creativity, I think, in San Diego to be discovered and to be brought together, but it's weird, right? San Diego is just so completely spread out. Even though it was such a small town, we all found each other through various things. There's always been people wanting to support good music and cultures and scenes and subcultures. But we really were a small town, 70s, 80s, 90s. Now we're finally becoming the big city that we deserve to be, which means a lot of things.
America's finest city.
I mean, the food scene in San Diego is pretty ridiculous. I mean, that's only because of the craft beer bringing great chefs to San Diego, I think. It all feeds into one another.
Do you really think that the craft beer
the craft beer put us on the map and started to create the food element, but the beer came first.
Yeah.
But now you see all these young people. I mean, it's fascinating. All over the city, there's just so much cool stuff, whether it be maybe some independent entrepreneurs or these crazy restaurant groups that are investing in these very Disney-esque, over-the-top, Instagrammable venues, spaces, bars, restaurants that they don't even advertise.
That's true.
It's fascinating. Like, we're all about promoting, and these places have been created that it happens for themselves, that
like word of mouth, just
the clientele promotes for them, which is fascinating, and then for me and you, I think bands, like, that's nightlife to me, is always going to see music, a band, but obviously there's any number of things people like to go do, and that's what's fascinating now. There's just so much more to do. I mean, all the breweries, they do offer music, maybe cover tribute bands, but I think people are inclined to stay within where they live. People are trying to find a place to live where you have things to enjoy within your area.
That's true.
Live, work, and play is kind of that's a great idea, concept where you don't have to commute, for example.
Right.
I mean, and commuting is getting worse in San Diego.
That's true. It's becoming more and more congested. I've seen a lot of people move out of San Diego in the last 10 years.
I mean, a lot of our friends can't afford to buy a house.
It's becoming more expensive. We're getting priced out.
Yeah, these people that I'm telling you, they're moving to San Diego are, they're making it harder for people we've known that have grown up here. Somebody we've known that's grown up here and wants to start a family. It's probably not the best place to try to do that unless you have maybe family or means, within the community. But you might do better off moving to Nashville, Memphis, who knows?
Texas.
A
lot of my friends have moved to Texas in the last 15 years alone. Yeah, I hear you.
But I love San Diego. I have a passion for it. I want it to be.
You're born and raised, right, Tim?
I was born in Minnesota, but raised here.
Gotcha.
But it's just sad. We're such a, we're so close to this mega city of the entertainment capital of the world, and I get mad when bands don't play San Diego, and that's my biggest complaint, is that it's like the Florida Panhandle syndrome. It really isn't worth it for bands sometimes to do that, to play the keys,
right.
Whatever, like that. There's no rhyme or reason. You got to backtrack, right? You're not going to get to play the same venues coming back, so it doesn't make sense. But for San Diego, it bums me out. It feels like they write us off. It's not every band, obviously, but there's surprisingly a lot of bands that just do the 10 freeway and they head straight out to Phoenix and they don't even play here. That's some pretty big bands too.
I mean, we're definitely overshadowed by LA, and we're known for our tourism.
Yeah.
Not necessarily our, other than
culture,
like the gas lamp nightlife. Yeah, exactly.
It's just, we're not like, it's just,
It's just, we were discussing this earlier. We feel like there's a need for more venues. I mean, look at like.
Well, I think in different parts of the city, it'd be cool if there was, something. Maybe give some of these bands that play the Casbah a reason to play, Oceanside, and then play. I mean, if there was, as our population grows, maybe it's just still not there yet. But I'd like to think that there's quite a few people up in North County that, there's a big gap. If you start filling in the gaps, it's an underserved community. That's weird. I mean, San Diego's just weird. I mean, the reason Casbah is tiny when you think about it, and the things that have gone through there, it's just ridiculous.
Speaking of Casbah, what nights are you currently booking over there?
Whenever he needs me to.
Okay. So
I'd say post-COVID, I've been booking more shows, potentially because of cancellations and whatever number of reasons.
Yeah, I feel like it's post-COVID, it's increased for you over there. I mean,
it's at least a week's worth of shows now every month.
Yeah.
But that's Sunday, Monday, Tuesdays,
right.
Not rarely a weekend and rarely a Wednesday or a Thursday. But I do have Friday, February 10th with Toothless George's band, the Poison Hearts Action Club, and this band I met from Orange County called the Provos, which are like an Irish punk band.
Oh, cool. I'll have to check them out.
And Doll Riot's opening.
Okay.
Shane Harden's band, Boss Man's son from Hodads, his band, the Hang Zeros.
Wait, did you book that February 10th date?
Yes.
Is that yeah, okay,
yeah.
Did you mention the date yet?
February 10th.
Yeah. Well, I did, but...
Yes, you did. So yeah, that's kind of cool. And George, Toothless George, is such a great promoter and hustler, and he's made...
Yes, he is.
He's made... I think he's making posters, and he's already made like old school, probably from the 50s looking Valentine's Day cards that are, flyers for the show. But they look like a little Valentine's Day card, to from.
I will say Toothless George is very creative. Half the time I don't recognize him anymore because I'm still getting used to the fact he's got long hair.
Yeah.
And his style has changed.
A little bit. And sometimes he has his teeth in and sometimes he doesn't.
Yep. Well, I mean, he is called Toothless George.
Yep.
He's got to live up to that name.
Yeah, exactly.
I will give him credit. He is a hustler. I got to know him in a closer capacity over the years. Having Iacon Sound, my former recording rehearsal studio, which I miss dearly, and now it's a livable workspace. But I have not seen his project yet, so I will definitely be out for that show. That sounds like a good time.
Yeah, it's like a rock and roll review with Tatiana singing, female frontwoman. It's got a little bit of like a more rock and roll version of like the Interrupters, but it's rock and roll. It's not ska, but it still has kind of a horns and their anthemic songs. Yeah, it should be fun. I'm looking forward to that opportunity to have a Friday at the world famous Casbah.
And are you booking any other venues besides Casbah? And you are booking Wonderbuzz.
Yeah, Wonderbuzz seems like it's been on hold a little bit. It'll probably start picking up next month in baseball season.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because they're more centered around events, right?
It just depends. I mean, we did some parades. We'll do St. Patrick's Day. The main client is Infinium Spirits, local brand company. So that's off the top of my head, Templeton Rye, and then the peanut butter whiskey.
Okay. Which
was created by the guy that owns the holding company.
Yeah, in Opie Noodle House.
And Opie Noodle House, yeah.
That's right.
And so then, they're like the main sponsors of the bus. But yeah, they do other things. It just depends. They they drove around the Wonderfront Festival.
Okay. Yeah, so for people that are unfamiliar with the Wonder Bus, it's a old-fashioned double-decker bus. And the top deck, the bands play up there, and they pull up to different destinations, and they'll play their set. What is a typical set time for the Wonder Bus?
The band could be up there for 3 hours, possibly, but you're not playing the whole time. And the key thing is you could play your same set over and over because you're playing for different people.
Right.
You know, the bus is moving or posting up, and so it's always constantly a different audience.
Sounds like fun. Maybe one of these
It
days
is.
I will play the Wonder Bus.
You should. Yeah, you should. I mean, perfect before a Padre game.
Yeah.
And we put all kinds of stuff on there, from hip-hop to cumbia to rock and roll to dudes that dressed up like friars.
Maybe we'll twist around the lyrics for the SD Loyal song and make it more Padre themed.
There you go.
That would be fun. Right on. So, besides that, what else are you doing? Like, booking any other venues, or you got the podcast show? You have
I'm just
the radio
producing,
show.
yeah, producing the radio shows,
Yeah.
and let's see. Yeah, just kind of waiting on a couple of things that I mentioned before, but yeah, I'm just not really.
Don't want to disclose anything.
Yeah.
That's cool. I get that. I can respect that.
Hopefully, still getting to promote and talk about bands and have a platform to expose people to these artists. You know, whether it be some kind of broadcast medium, that could be radio, TV.
I gotta love that, Tim.
I'm hoping. It's just, you know.
Tim, you're definitely like the face of music when it comes to my opinion. Mayor of San Diego music, whatever you want to call him, classify him as a superhero. You've had theme songs written about you. I mean, you're definitely an icon and a legend in this scene in my book. And, you know, I appreciate how much love and support you put into the San Diego music community, but not just that, like your love and passion for music, like it's your life force.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why we have that kind of synergy and I mean brotherhood, because we're pretty much on the same wavelength there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, music is like the best thing in the world, in my opinion, like most powerful form of energy, and I always talk about that. And yeah, you know, it's great to see that your drive and your passion has never slowed down. If anything, it's just increased. You know, so much love and respect to you. And if anyone wants to get in contact with you, whether it's booking or to get on your podcast show or radio show, like, how can they get a hold of you? What's the best method?
Probably just Twitter or Instagram. You can message me there.
Okay.
The local Pyle, Pyle.
Awesome. And we'll post all of the links in this the info section of this episode. And cool. Well, Tim, I always ask our guests to share their wisdom or ending thoughts, some kind of affirmation, motto, slogan, tagline they live by. Anything you want to tell the listeners out there?
Let's see. The future is unwritten. Write your own story. I don't know why I just said that. Yeah, just hoping I can still be there for San Diego, you know. I feel like I've been let down by some people that I thought believed in what I did, but whatever, politics or whatever it might be. But everything I've ever done has all been in fun, and figured, you know, I'm on radio, so let's sticker my face and stencil my face and do something like that, you know. As always, the joke has been I have a face for radio, but there was no ill will to the brands I work for by trying to be a bigger brand than them necessarily. I was just having fun.
Right.
And I love this town. To have a platform to support this community is pretty amazing. So I hope to have something. I mean, I still do, but
You still do, Tim.
it's just different. It's just
And
different.
you'll always be loved and respected in the San Diego music community. And I'll always be one of your number one supporters.
Oh, thanks.
Any last words before we wrap up?
I'll see you at a show.
Yeah, if you want to find Tim Pyles, come down to the Cas Bar or any badass show. You're sure most likely to catch him there.
Wish me luck on my colonoscopy.
And that is next week, isn't it? So wish him luck on his colonoscopy. And on that note, you've listened to another episode of The King's Couch. I'm your host, Sulo King, and we'll see you next time.